Well, good morning. Happy Wednesday to you. I'm hoping that my my computer, when it reboots overnight, sometimes the sound doesn't pick up in the next day. So hopefully my sound is working. It appears to be working on the screen. It wasn't, but then I made the adjustment that makes it work, and now it appears like it is working. So I'm going under the assumption that it's working unless somebody tells me different. And let me close that out. What a beautiful morning outside. 76 degrees, according to my thermometer, and according to my watch, it's, oh, that is a good thing I looked at that. Hold on just a second. I got to do something here. Okay. Sorry about that. That was not good. Yes, sound is working. Good. Wonderful. Yeah, according to my watch, it's 72 degrees. So my thermometer pickup, whatever you would call it, my remote sensor for my thermometer sits really, really close to the back wall of my back patio, and it still has radiant heat coming on it. So it doesn't give a really good, accurate picture to what the temperature is. It'll tell me what it is on the back patio, but if you go out farther, out into the wilderness, it gets a lot colder. And it's 72 there. Anyway, all right. Sorry about all that. It was raining on me this morning. I went out walking and it was just sprinkling on me. It's like, oh, this feels nice. So it's good. Let's see. It is Wednesday. It's trash day. I got the trash can out, so I'm happy about that. And yeah, another day in the Lord. Should be a good day. I don't know if it's going to rain today. These clouds look like they're still persistent, so we might get some rain today. So that's kind of exciting. We have no birthdays today, so I'm going to close that window out. We have one tomorrow, I believe, and then yeah. Yes, Del Lago, Tacey. Just so you're aware. In 2019, the owners of the Del Lago Golf Course sold their water rights. They have a dam that's up Pantano Wash, and this dam is from the 1800s. And there's a pipe, believe it or not, that brings water from that dam all the way to the golf course. And that's how that golf course was watered for 100 years. And then back in 2019, the owners of the golf course decided that they would sell the water rights of that dam to Hudbay so that they could have water rights and do their mining. And I don't know what it was sold for. My guess is somewhere between $3 and $10 million. I don't know. So they basically cashed out the golf course. And since they own the water company, they decided that they'd pull the water out of the ground and water the golf course there. And but the thing is that water companies have to get their approvals from the State Corporation Commission. And so they had to start paying for the water of the golf course. And they just, you can't, I mean, golf courses are very expensive. They take a lot of water. So they started skimping back on the water. And I think it made the golf course less popular. So it would not surprise me that at some point they will sell it. I don't know who'd buy it. Golf courses don't make a lot of money, and what the value of that golf course was the water rights, not the golf course itself. And they've already cashed in that. So it'd be great if the homeowners association could maybe make an offer to purchase that golf course and then turn it into walking trails. I mean, we could keep but it's just golf courses are they're very difficult to be profitable. You have to manage them really, really, really well, and there's low margins. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But yeah, they're as of Monday they closed down, and I don't know if they will ever reopen again. The one at Corona de Tucson closed down. It never reopened, and that was 20 years ago. So it'll if we don't purchase this as an HOA, it'll lay fallow and just turn into weeds. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works. But it is sad. Now the restaurant remains open at least till the end of the month, and I think they're trying to figure out what to do about the restaurant. The restaurant's actually, I think, could be very profitable. Apparently it's got good food. I mean, I haven't eaten there in a while, but good food, good. I've worked with the restaurant for years for all sorts of things. It's a nice community asset, but restaurants are hard to operate too. I mean, everything's hard to operate. The cost of doing business just keeps going up and up and up. The regulations and all this stuff they choke you to death, That's my thought. That and inflation and all the other things, cost of oil. Anyway, yeah, so that's Del Lago. It's unfortunate, but expected. When it sold in 2019, I kind of thought that when they sold the water rights, I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. So anyway, all right. Yeah, it is sad for sure. Hey, let's get into our study. We are in Ephesians chapter 6. This is the last chapter of Ephesians. And Paul, remember, is writing this letter for unity. And part of the things for unity is helping people understand what their hierarchical structure is. Because a lot of times people don't understand, and that can cause a lot of problems. And so Paul has talked about husbands and wives and how that relationship works. And now he's going to continue to talk about children and fathers and parents. So let's start looking at chapter 6. So this probably won't come up. I have to hold on just a second. Hold on right there. Okay. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, so that it may go well with you and that you may enjoy long life on the earth. So children are supposed to honor their father and mother. And it's not just obeying them, it's honoring them. It's having a relationship and understanding that they're in charge. They've lived a long life. They have lived more than you have. They probably have a lot of wisdom. So retain that knowledge, because that knowledge can come in handy to you in the future. But I think there's something also. This is the only commandment. When we teach confirmation, we always tell the kids, all the 10 commandments, this is the only one that has a promise attached to it. And so Paul was saying the same thing 2,000 years ago. This is the only commandment with a promise, because it is. Honor your father and mother so it may go well with you all the days of your life. There is something about honoring your father and mother that comes with a blessing. Enjoy that it may go well with you. I think that, and when I teach the 10 Commandments, I also teach that these aren't just rules to follow. It's a handbook for how society should live together, and it's how we're created. So all these commandments at some root level have a blessing or a joy or something about us as humans that impacts our life and makes our life better. Otherwise, why would you have 10 commandments? I mean, the whole purpose of the 10 commandments is to make our lives better, our society better, our relationship with God. But all these things are supposed to get better because of the 10 commandments. And so you have to think and say, okay, what is the benefit of honoring your father and mother? Like, is there a psychological benefit or is there a physical benefit? I believe that that part of our human psyche is we want to know where we came from, who we are. And you see people that do genealogies, they want to know what part of the world they come from. But they'll always ask their parents, tell me the stories about your grandparents and their grandparents. I mean, there's just something, and I think it's deeply rooted in the same way that we restore the Vail post office. It's because we want to have a connection to the past. And having a connection to the past, I think, meets a psychological or spiritual need in us that we can't even put our finger on or quantify. But I do believe that that is part of the human condition. We like to be connected to things of the past. We want to be connected to those things that give us our identity. And of course, our identity is in Christ, but part of our identity is a history of who we are as a Christian church and where did Jesus come from and where was that plan, and all that stuff is a history that gets taught to us it is a present day relationship with Jesus Christ. That I understand. But it's also a history of Jesus and the church and of the creation of the world. All these things, like the whole story of creation in Genesis, like why is that recorded and carried forward? And the answer is because we have a deep, deep desire to know these things. And so when we talk about this commandment of honoring your father and mother, it's not just obeying them, but it's having a deep connection with them. And because of that, having a deep connection with the wider family that they represent, their mother and father, brothers, sisters, all that, and even a wider connection to the world around us. And I think that there's a deep psychological need for that. And so when we honor our father and mothers, it's not just obeying them, but it's fulfilling something in our life. And I think that's why God says that it may go well with you. It may not be apparent. I mean, obviously, don't kill. That one makes kind of sense. And don't lie and don't cheat and don't steal and don't, covet. All those things make sense. But this, like, honor your father and mother, what is that one? But I think it goes deeper. And I think he put this in there to say there is a reason why you should honor your father and mother. And it's not just to respect them, but that there's something deeper going on. All right. But sometimes it's hard to honor your father and mother. Sometimes you'll tell this commandment to kids and they hold up their hand and they say, what if your mom and dad do drugs and, they're not good parents and they're in prison and all these things? Do I need to honor them also? And of course, that's always a challenging question. And the answer, the short answer is yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean honoring them in the same way as you might honor them if they weren't in prison or drugs. There's ways to honor them to get the benefit of that relationship and that history without necessarily, especially if they're, let's say that, this can happen, I think, even today. You have a mother and a father, and they've got two kids. And the father, let's say he comes home and he's drunk every night and he beats his wife, and she accepts this because that's, what she thinks she's supposed to do. And the kids, they see this, and at some point they might say, what does honoring my father and look like? Like, what's the best way to honor him? And that's a challenge, and it requires, difficult inward retrospection and looking at his life and your life and your mom's life. There's it doesn't necessarily mean that if they say something that you have to do it every time. I don't think it does say the word obey. That's for sure. We are to obey children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right, in the Lord. If they're not in the Lord, if they're not doing godly things, that obedience may look different. And especially as you get older. But I think having that connection is beneficial, even if it doesn't mean that the relationship is perfect. I think that having some sort of, looking at what that relationship should be, comparing that to your life and saying, can I honor them? How would God want me to honor them in this situation? That's always a different, that's a challenging question, because a lot of the commandments are written for ideal conditions. Sometimes you don't have ideal conditions, so you have to punt. Even the commandment, divorce. You can divorce. In the New Testament, Jesus said, yes, that this is acceptable under certain conditions, and so there are always caveats in everything. You just have to pray to God to give you the wisdom to know how to do that. It's a hard thing to say, but when you're telling this to a 7th grader or an 8th grader, it's like, no, honor your parents. I know your parents, honor them. Yeah. All right. Verse 4. Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord. This is always... being a good father does not necessarily mean exasperating your children. The story that whenever I think about this, apparently there was this guy who told his child to get up on a ladder and to jump into his arms. So the child, maybe 4 years old or whatever, got up on the ladder. The dad held out his arms and the child jumped, and the guy stepped back and the child fell to the floor, didn't break anything. And then the father came up to him and said, "That's to teach you never to trust anybody, not even me." Well, and that may seem like, in some universe, maybe some guy was taught that. But if you've ever been a father, your parents, your kids have to trust you. And you have to be trustworthy. And the way to be trustworthy is to not exasperate. Like, if you say you're going to do something, follow through with it. If you don't follow through with it, sit down with them, explain why you didn't follow through with it. One of the things, and I guess another thing that I always think about is that Cat Stevens song, "Cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man in the moon. When you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, but we'll get together then, yeah." So there's this emotional song that came out in my lifetime that, a good father spends a lot of time with his children and he doesn't work, all the time. Well, that is a modern day thing. In the world of even 200 years ago, the father worked very, very closely with his children and taught them the trade. If it was agriculture, taught him agriculture. If it was animal husbandry, it was that. If it was how to be a cobbler, it was that. The child grew up in an atmosphere learning from the father the trades. And then we get into the Industrial Revolution. And ultimately, the role of the father isn't necessarily be to the child's best friend and his emotional support animal. The true role of the father is to make sure that the child grows up to fear and love God, and that he is on his own and can sustain his own life and have his own children. That is the goal of the father. And sometimes there are some careers where you just can't be home all the time. And it would be nice, but that just doesn't always happen. And I think a lot of fathers today, me included, feel a lot of guilt because we did as best as we could, but we know we could have done better. And my reply to me and all those fathers out there: do what you can. Teach your children to love and fear God is number one. Support them as you possibly can. Be there for them, number two. And accept the grace of God that no father's perfect. There's a friend of mine who's a pastor here in Vail, and he runs a parenting clinic. And one of the things he says in his clinic is every parent will damage their children because, of course, that's a shocking statement. But it's true because no parent is perfect. So if no parent is perfect, there will be some level of bad parenting that you will do in your world. And that's just the truth of it. And so you do what you can as best as you can, as God has created you, knowing that you're not perfect, and try to share the love of Jesus with your children, grow them in a very solid family as best as you can, and then leave it up to Jesus for the rest of their life. I mean, they ultimately the goal is that they're on their own, and that they're raising their own children and creating their own family. And that is the hope and joy. Now, not everyone is going to, that we know that too. But that's not a reflection on you. That's a reflection on the child-parent world God dynamic of which you're one part of, but you're only one part of. And the world has a huge influence in our children. And I think that is why I'm so passionate about our school, is because we give a very, very positive influence from the world's viewpoint before they have to go out and into challenging the world. And at some point they will, but but the longer you can give them a strong foundation and the deeper that foundation grows, I think it's better for the psychological health of the child. All right. Verse 5. Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear and with sincerity of heart, just as you would obey Christ. Obey them not only to win their favor when their eye is on you, but as slaves of Christ, doing the will of God from your heart. Serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, whether they are slave or free. So obviously this is not condoning modern day 19th century slave trade. This is not in the slaves in the Old Testament and the New Testament was a different beast. There were times when people were bought and sold into slavery, but there were also indentured servants. There were also people that sold themselves into slavery because it was a way to be able to pay back a debt. Or there could have been people that just didn't have the mental acuity to run their own life, and so they sold themselves into slavery to have somebody else kind of tell them what to do and to wake up and eat and all that sort of thing. The slavery I think there were some real world benefits from the Old Testament and early New Testament system of slavery. Now, I'm not saying that all slaves were perfect, and I'm not saying all masters were perfect, and I'm not saying all systems are perfect, but I'm saying that it was a whole lot different. That being said, it also the slave trade, the modern day slave trade, I think it is absolutely huge that it was abolished before I was even part of life. And even the civil rights movement that came out of that took that allowed people of disadvantaged heritages to be able to be treated better, I guess you could say. All that stuff is good. And I think slavery is not the human condition. We are not meant to be slaves. If anything, if you take the deep, deep, deep psychological meaning of how the Israelites ended up in slavery and how they cried out to God to rescue them from slavery, if you think of what the root, if you look in the Old Testament, the number one story isn't the flood, it isn't creation, it's Exodus. It's the fact that God rescued Israel out of slavery in Egypt. That is as Jesus is the pinnacle story for Christians, that story of being in the Exodus and being rescued from slavery is the Old Testament number one story. And what is the chief Old Testament story then? It's that the Old Testament people of God were in slavery and God freed them. And what's the New Testament? That we were in slavery to sin and God frees us. And slavery is not the human condition at all. But voluntary servanthood is the human condition. And it's a fine distinction because they both can look very, very similar. But giving yourself up, humbling yourself, and serving other people voluntarily is where Christ wants us to live. And that's how people get into slavery. That's like how the Old Testament people got into slavery, because God had created a people through however he did it, through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and said, you will be a blessing. I'm going to bless you, but you need to be a blessing to other people. You need to serve other people, Abraham. And so when Abraham starts serving other people took advantage of that and put him into slavery. God had to rescue him. So it's the root human condition, I think, is slavery. Both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. And that's where free will comes in. I mean, the whole eating of the garden of the knowledge of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which allowed humankind basically to have free will and free agency. It comes with a price, and the price is slavery. And the human condition is not involuntary slavery; it's voluntary slavery, basically. Which you have to struggle with. But that's the human condition. All right, so I'm gonna leave it there. That was slaves obey your, yeah, maybe we'll just pick up in 5 again, 6:5, and finish that thought, because I don't think I finished that whole paragraph. So let's close that out. And we'll close the morning with prayer. Gracious God, thank you for the beauty of this day, and watch over us until we meet again. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So thank you for joining me. I see all the comments of people. You can hear me. That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And hope you have a great day in the Lord. We'll see you later. Take care. Bye.